All right, let's talk about this Trump, Vance, Zelensky thing that's going on, okay? There are a couple things that happen in this video that we're going to look at that have never been done before on video, anyway, or on film. It's bizarre that nobody is saying, hey, man, look at this, and you'll understand that in just a minute. So let's go through this section by section and talk about what's going on from a body language and behavior perspective.
Everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future.
Now, I'm going to play this one again. I want you to pay attention to how fluid Zelensky's body language is. Usually we say crossed arms means absolutely nothing, but in this case, he's being defensive with it because of the situation of what's happening here. Look at how fluid his head is moving when he's got those eyebrows up and he's looking at Vance, and he's using what's called his teaching face. I learned that from Greg Hartley. I sent him a video one time of somebody I was looking at. I said, dude, what's going on with this guy's face? He said, that's his teaching face. And that's what this is here. But this is a great example of someone who has a lot of confidence, even though they're being a little defensive to the person sitting next to them, to the person they're talking to. They've got a lot of confidence in what's happening. And this is actually when he steps at it. So let's take a look at this one more time.
Everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position.
When we talk about illustrators, which we're seeing a whole lot of them here, illustrators are the way the brain emphasizes specific words and phrases, like I did just then, specific words and phrases. We're seeing Trump do this a lot, and we're seeing Zelensky do this a lot. Trump's are much larger because his confidence is on a much larger scale than Zelensky's is. Zelensky is pretty much just illustrating with his head at this point. And then Trump has got his hands out, he's got his arms out, he's moving forward. Let's take a look at the way they're both sitting. Trump is scooted forward a little bit. Zelensky isn't, again, because he's in a defensive mode, quote unquote. So his take on the situation or his approach to it is going to be a whole lot different. Now, watch how close Trump gets to Zelensky. Okay, he's getting close there. He's getting in his turf. He's getting in his area. Always makes us uncomfortable when somebody gets in our space. And that's what Trump is doing. And he's probably doing it on purpose because he's taking up a whole lot more room, showing that he's the guy in charge, the one in control, the alpha of the situation. Zelensky's from another country. So watch how small his illustrators are. He's trying to illustrate. And the only way he can really show his anger or his frustration is through his voice with volume. It gets louder and quieter and all that. But listen to Trump's. Trump's diction is spot on. It's very clean. Listen to how loud it is. Listen to the tone of voice he's using.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
Because that tone is that a little bit rough, but you can tell he's a little bit angry. If you look at Trump's eyebrows, you'll see that anger pop up in there. You'll see these come forward right here in this little area here is called the glabella. And when you see the eyebrows come in, obviously you know what anger is. Everyone pretty much does. But watch his teeth and watch his mouth. When he gets mad, his nostrils flare a little bit. You can see those bottom teeth, sometimes the upper teeth, but mostly his bottom teeth. Now on Zelensky, he's frustrated and he's getting angry. He's trying to control himself, trying to control his anger because he's not used to dealing with leaders who push up against him like this. Up to this point, he's had people saying, oh, you're wonderful. Here's what's going on. We'll do, what do you need? Here you go. We're going to do this. And these guys are saying, no, man, you're not, this isn't what we're doing now. Things have changed. Here's what needs to happen next. He's not used to that. So we see what's called inner dialogue going on up here as he looks away and is talking and tries to get a handle on what he's going to say next as he's structuring his sentences, as he's preparing his statements to say next. But they've sort of got him, he's having to do it on the fly. So it's sort of got him off kilter or offset just a bit, which is normal for a situation like this.
In the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position.
Also notice how often Trump looks Zelensky in the eye and how often Zelensky doesn't look at Trump in the eye. Okay, he looks down. Because it's tough to look at somebody when they're getting after you, when they're getting up your hind end, when you're that close. Okay, unless you're getting ready to fight them or something. If they had kept looking, it could have gotten even more heated. And another cool thing about this is we're seeing the classic Trump pointing. We're seeing his point finger, which he uses to take control of situations. When we control a situation with our hands, those are called regulators because you can slow something down, tell somebody not to do something, hang on, I need your attention. You don't do that. You come over here, those kind of things. Stop, everybody stop, time out. Those kind of things regulate the speed of the conversation or the situation. So Trump uses those a lot, and he's really good at it.
You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Keep an eye on Zelensky's eyes and watch how they dart around, because he's got these phrases and these little things he says, like 2 or 3 sentences that are prepared that he just shoots out as his normal things to say, and he can't get one out. That's why he keeps repeating the top of that sentence.
You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position.
He's trying to get that thought out, because that's one of his little go-tos where he puts God in it, and he puts, here's what they're going to do. It's real tight. In a few minutes, you'll hear him talk about we've been alone, and you can see him settle in to deliver that. So this is really interesting because we see someone structuring and preparing their answer that is locked and loaded. They've got a bunch of them sitting over here, a list of things they usually say, and none of that is working. So he's not quite in panic mode, but he's getting right up next to it, but he's frustrated as he's trying to find a way to get his point across and get his little saying across in the situation, and it's not working. You know what really gets me about this whole TikTok ban thing? Me and you could go online right now and go to any data broker site and buy somebody's personal information for just a few dollars. And it's totally legal. Meanwhile, big companies with weak security are getting hacked every day. Your personal data is ending up on the dark web, and any spammer, scammer, or identity thief can use it. And guess what? Nobody's going to hold them accountable. So if the government can ban TikTok, then why aren't they protecting us from this stuff? At the end of the day, it's up to us to look out for ourselves. And that's where today's sponsor, Aura, comes in. Aura makes online protection easy, and they'll track down the data brokers that are selling your information and automatically submit opt-out requests for you. Then give them a few weeks, and when you Google yourself, you'll notice your information is disappearing, and that means less spam. And Aura doesn't stop there. They constantly monitor the dark web, and they let you know if your personal information shows up. So if somebody tries to use your details to get into your bank account or your credit accounts, you're going to know fast. And if the worst happens, you're covered with up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. Plus, Aura's app includes a VPN with over 100 virtual locations. Can your current VPN do all that? So head over to aura.com/Scott Rouse to kick off your free trial and stop leaving yourself wide open to data breaches. I put a link in the description below.
You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
This is a great example of two people using illustrators and regulators at the same time, because Trump is illustrating with one hand and he's regulating with the other. It's like, hold up, and then he's telling you what he's going to do or what's going to happen next. So that's really interesting. And listen to the volume difference in Zelensky and Trump.
With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Obviously, Zelensky's is a lot lower and Trump's a lot higher. And again, his voice tone getting to where it sounds angry, and his face is showing anger as well. Look at these expressions. What's the expressions Zelensky's face, from anger to what, to confusion to concern? What's the different emotions that flow through his face? They don't pop on and off, but you can see him morph from one to the other. Whereas Trump's really don't change. It's that one expression he's gotten that he's using over and over and over to make sure his point gets across.
With us, you start having
not playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
What do you think
You're gambling with World War III.
Also pay attention to all the single shoulder and very short shoulder shrugs that Zelensky is showing and doing, these little cues that are popping off. Now, when someone shows you a little single shoulder shrug like that, that lets you know they're not sure about or they're insecure with their answer. They're not confident with it, in other words. We're seeing a lot of that. A lot of that, one going up like that and his chin pointing toward it. Really interesting. Whereas Trump, he's not doing that. He's pretty much staying where he was, got his regulator up and he's got his illustrator happening and making his point with with that voice we've been talking about at this point. It's not changing. It's the same thing. Whereas Zelensky really can't find the pocket to get into to approach this situation and hopefully make things change. And when you get in that position, it's really frustrating and you can see the frustration building on him. At the same time, he's starting to have that thought of, what am I going to do next? This has gone sideways on me. I don't know what to do next. So he just keeps trudging forward and trying to get through the mess that's going on. You can't see him very well, but keep an eye on Zelensky's hands when they're down here because he's doing what's called adapting, and that's where you do a repetitive motion, something over and over to get rid of that built-up stress and tension. That's how we do it. Sometimes it's this, and you'll rub your arm or your shoulder like this, or you'll maybe grip something and pull on it, and that will help get rid of that built-up stress and tension. Sometimes that when your arms are crossed, that's what that can be because you're sort of hugging yourself, and that helps you relax. Zelensky has this little bitty area that he's claimed is his, whereas Trump has practically the whole room because of the way his arms are moving, the way he's moving around, the way he's leaning forward.
With us, you start having
not
cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't. You're playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
What do you think
You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
Notice how Zelensky's eyebrows are up almost the whole time because he's trying to get their attention. When you do that, quite often it shows you're listening, obviously. And then again, it's one of those things where you do that to get someone's attention and to keep their attention, but it's not working because Trump really isn't looking at him. Okay, and he's telling them the way things are and what's going to happen next again. As Zelensky tries to get through, he's becoming even quieter and smaller, if you'll take a look at him, because his confidence at this point is out the window. Not much there at all, especially when you're compared to President Trump, who at this point is angry. When you get somebody like that angry, their aggressive body language is going to come out. And Trump's getting even closer to him as with his illustrators. He's taken up not only his own space, Trump's space, he's taken up Zelensky's space as well. That becomes uncomfortable early on when you start something like that. And I think that's what's going on here. It's a tack you can take. Also, keep an eye out for that big swallow that Zelensky does as he's talking, because he's not quite in panic mode, but he knows this has gone sideways on him. And somehow he's got to try to fix it. And he doesn't see a way to fix it. So he's looking for his way out here because at this point, he's being pummeled by Trump and he's looking for an out. That's why he keeps looking around. And then Vice President Vance speaks up and he sees that as an out and he goes directly to that. And in a minute, he thinks that's actually helping him, but we'll see what happens.
And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
Should have.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly.
What's really interesting here is when Vance leans up, he takes his tie and he straightens his tie out. That's the things you're preening, saying, all right, here I go. Get ready. I've got some information for you. He's a really great debater. Well, President Trump and Vice President Vance are both fantastic debaters. So that's why he's talking so slowly. All right, he's talking very slowly and making his point. His illustrators are on point. So when someone's illustrators are on point, obviously your brain is emphasizing specific words and phrases. When they're doing this and hitting on the words, you can tell that person's locked up with what's happening. If they don't hit where they're supposed to, or they keep hitting after you talk and they're not landing on the specific words and phrases, that means there's a disconnect between what you're actually saying and what you actually mean. Because since there's that disconnect, you're not actually making your point. Whereas someone with a lot of emotion behind it is making their point. And obviously, Vance here is making his point the way he wants to. So this is really interesting because no matter how hard Zelensky tries to shut Vance down, not going to happen. Because Vance is being very clear. His diction is spot on. His tone of voice is strong. It's spot on. So is his volume. Everything is good here.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Everything is happening the way it should happen for Vance at this point, where Zelensky, that soft-spoken thing, isn't working. A lot of times you can talk really quietly and everybody will hush and start listening to you because you're talking quietly. That's not working here. I think that's what he's trying to do in a couple of spots because it's such a dramatic difference volume-wise from one side of the room to his side of the room. And even from him, he's talking way up here, then his volume comes way low like this as he tries to look and talk seriously.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
This is a really great example of someone taking control of a conversation, even though the other person is trying to take control as well, using a tact that isn't working. And you see the respect that Trump has for Vance because as soon as Vance says something, Trump goes back to his classic thing where he's steepling and starts listening. At the same time, we see what's called pursed lips, and pursed lips suggest, or they denote, that that person doesn't agree with what's happening, and President Trump doesn't agree with what's happening with Zelensky. That's why he's so angry. Again, Zelensky comes in like he's looking down at, which he is, because obviously he's literally looking down at him because Vance is in a seat that's down lower than Zelensky's. But he starts talking in the tone and the look, and his head up and his chin back a little bit, those eyebrows up, giving it to him like, here's the way things are, son. And Trump's not having that, him disrespect his vice president.
If you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly.
Another interesting thing is at the end of Vice President Vance's speech, his part, listen to how he ends that when he talks. And then he makes sure every word illustrates with the important words. And then he sits back in his seat like, this is done, I'm over. It's really interesting how powerful that is when it's done correctly.
President who's trying to save your country.
And when President Trump breaks in and says he's not speaking loudly, watch how Zelensky is taken aback by what's happened because he literally backs up some and gets away from it a little bit. This is natural. We can't help it. When something like that bothers us, we want to get away from it, but he can't get away from it. So it's really interesting to see how the little things in human behavior and body language that you see every day, you're seeing right here. They're just on a larger scale.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
The war
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days. I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this, I tell you.
Now let's pay attention to the fingers here. Okay. So when Zelensky starts talking, he puts his hand on his chest. And he's got a lot of space between his fingers. Like, hey, listen, here's what's going on, fellas. Here's what I know. Here's what's happening. But look at all the space, because when someone has a lot of space between their fingers, that lets you know that they're confident. They're more confident in what they're talking about, the situation, how they feel about things. And when there's less space, obviously they don't feel as confident with what's going on. He thinks at this point he's going to deliver this packaged and ready to go little bit that he's been given all around the world when he goes to give these speeches, and he's going to deliver that and it's going to be fine. Trump shuts him down. Trump actually steps in with both hands, with all of his fingers is wide open like this. That shows a lot of confidence, and very loud, and shutting him down.
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
But he's getting ready to deliver that thing where we've been alone and we're by ourselves. And you can tell he kind of sits down, doesn't sit down, but he sort of backs up a little bit and just sits in it and starts going with it. Trump's like, no, man, that's not true. You haven't been alone.
We are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks.
You haven't been
in this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment.
You
and you men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment,
you invited
if
me
you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days. I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this, I tell you.
Let's watch one more time the illustrators that Zelensky is using with his hand. Like we were talking about fingers a minute ago in the space. Look at how much space there isn't between his fingers as he's illustrating. Then right away, Trump comes back with his fingers wide open. This is a great contrast between leadership and confidence with somebody who's trying to lead and trying to have confidence.
We are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks.
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment.
This thing's heating up quick, and there's some things from a body language perspective that are really fascinating, because we're getting ready to see what I've been talking about. The thing people are bringing it up, but they're not realizing this has never, ever, ever, ever happened before. All right, let's watch this and see if you see it.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment.
You
and you men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment.
President Trump pushes him, literally pushes him.
If you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment.
Never before has a leader pushed another leader in front of everybody. They may have done it in the back room, like I said, where they do the negotiating stuff, but never out here in the open. So this says a lot. There's a lot going on here, and I can't believe nobody's actually focused on this so far, because that is a really big deal. Let's watch a little more of this interaction so you can get a feel of how it wound up.
All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that. All right, we'll see what we can do about winning.
So now you can see how it kind of wound down a little bit and got to a semi-normal situation before Zelensky left. And but it goes like this sometimes, but it doesn't happen in public in front of the world like this. So this was a fascinating study of two leaders and how things probably happen when they're backstage, when nobody's there, and you can see how deals are made and things happen. This gives you a little insight to how things may really go down in those things. I'm not saying this is the first time a leader hasn't pushed another leader. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure they holler and scream and throw stuff or whatever it is they do. But this is the first time we've seen it in public like this, and the world saw it. All right, we'll see you next time.